Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're deconstructing a story that does something pretty wild. It fuses classic literature, German philosophy, and deep comic book mythology into a completely new kind of apocalypse. It's a story that asks a pretty heavy question. What happens when the devil makes a bet, a philosopher's ideas become a weapon, and the literal gods of the DC universe go to war over just one single human soul?
Okay, let's get into it. We're going to follow the breadcrumbs here, starting with a simple wager for a soul, and see how it just completely escalates into a full-blown cosmic war. We'll look at how philosophy gets turned into a weapon, how all these gods and monsters get dragged into the fight, and how it all builds to this horrifying new reality, what they call the Fifth World.
All right, first up, the unholy trinity. The core idea you gotta grasp is that this isn't just your standard story about superheroes punching villains to save the day. Nope. This is a metaphysical drama, a fight for the very soul and the future of humanity itself.
And it pulls this off by creating what's basically an ideological pressure cooker. It takes a huge, heady philosophical argument and makes it terrifyingly real, playing it all out on a cosmic stage where the fate of the entire universe is, quite literally, hanging in the balance.
So here are the three pillars that hold this whole apocalyptic thing up. And you can think of them like this: a literary trap, a philosophical weapon, and a cosmic battlefield. First up, the trap. It's a classic Faustian bargain. Second, the weapon. The philosophy of Nietzsche gets twisted into an operational code. And third, the battlefield. The DC multiverse itself, which provides all the gods, monsters, and cosmic stakes you could ever need. Let's start with the bedrock of this whole narrative, that timeless story of the Faustian bargain.
Yeah, the entire conflict, the very skeleton of the story, is built on a classic literary foundation. It's a wager made up in heaven for the soul of one man, and it's a direct echo of Goethe's Faust.
And this, right here, is the heart of that bet. It's basically a prologue in heaven between the Lord and Mephistopheles, and it's all over this one guy, Maximus, the Seeker. See, this isn't just a fight, it's a bet on the very nature of humanity. The Lord is betting on our inherent goodness, while Mephistopheles is convinced he can corrupt absolutely anyone. Suddenly, the stakes aren't about saving a city anymore. They're about saving our collective soul.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. This classic wager kicks off a turf war between two of DC's biggest tyrants. Mephistopheles basically pokes the bear. He provokes Darkseid by going after a soul that was looking for answers about anti-life. And this just pits two completely opposite forms of control against each other. You have Darkseid, who demands absolute total order. He literally says choice is a myth. But then you have Mephistopheles, who thrives on desire. For him, a person who damns himself is a work of art. This is a clash between a universe that is completely silent and one that screams.
So who is this mortal caught in this cosmic tug-of-war? Well, he's defined by a very specific fatal flaw. His intellectual pride, his hubris. It's not just him being arrogant, it's actually a shield he uses to hide his absolute terror of damnation and his desperate need for certainty.
And this is a perfect illustration of how that specific flaw gets exploited. The predator here, Mephistopheles, doesn't just offer, raw power. He's way more subtle. He's like a psychological surgeon, presenting this perfectly tailored two-pronged solution that hits all of the protagonist's deepest anxieties. He offers freedom from doubt and freedom from authority. It's designed to feel like liberation, not damnation.
Okay, so let's move on to that second pillar. This is where we see how this whole conflict is powered, not by magic or some cosmic energy, but by a weaponized, totally perverted philosophy. And this is where things get truly diabolical.
The demonic intelligence, Mephistopheles, he takes the ideas of the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche and he twists them into the literal operational code for his apocalyptic weapon. This isn't just a theme, it's the mission statement. He reframes a whole philosophy about individual self-improvement into a demonic mandate for a global purge.
And this philosophical assault unfolds in three very calculated steps. First, it targets humanity as what Nietzsche called the last man, basically creatures whose safety and comfort provided by superheroes has become a crime of stagnation. Second, it sets the goal: create the Übermensch, the overman, by using a plague as an evolutionary forge. And finally, it completely reframes the idea of heroism. The compassion of superheroes, that's redefined as slave morality, a weakness that's holding all of humanity back.
All right, on to the final pillar, the grand stage where this whole philosophical and theological drama plays out. I mean, you can't have a war of ideas this big without a universe-sized canvas to paint it on.
And this is what makes it all really land.
The story grounds these huge, abstract ideas in the vast, established cosmology of the DC universe. This is so key. It turns what could be a philosophical debate into a tangible, multiversal war, pulling in places like Apocalypse, a horror multiverse, and even a reality-bending engine called the Twilight Nexus. And the way it does this is just so clever. It repurposes all these iconic DC elements and gives them new thematic weight. So the presence becomes the Lord from Faust, which just raises the stakes to the absolute highest level. Darkseid becomes the embodiment of absolute order, making him the perfect philosophical opponent for Mephistopheles. The anti-life equation becomes the ultimate threat to the devil's whole operation, which is built on temptation and choice. And the monsters from that horror multiverse, they become the physical embodiment of this whole conflict. So, what happens when you take these three pillars, the Faustian bargain, the weaponized philosophy, and the cosmic mythology, and you finally just slam them all together? Well, you get something truly monstrous. You get this horrifying synthesis, a god machine that's built from three distinct, terrifying parts. The vessel is a techno-organic plague that comes from the Amazon android. The pilot is the cynical, demonic intelligence of Mephistopheles. And its mission? That's the weaponized Nietzschean philosophy.
And this is it. The ultimate fusion, Amazoth. Think about what this thing is for a second. It's a self-evolving, biological supercomputer that has a demonic ego and is on a philosophical crusade. Its whole purpose is to forcibly evolve humanity through a baptism of fire, whether we want it or not.
Amazoth's attack isn't about submission. It's a moral temptation. It offers humanity godhood, tempting them to just accept its virus and evolve. And the ones who agree, they get networked into a single superhive. In the process, it completely humiliates the heroes by copying their powers and framing their mercy as a weakness. But the birth of this god machine isn't the end of the story. Not even close. It's the catalyst for an entirely new and, frankly, terrifying reality. It's the beginning of the end, and at the same time, the end of the beginning.
The entire story arc, from that initial wager all the way to the rise of the hive mind, it just shows how this unholy trinity systematically dismantles the heroic ideal, puts the Justice League completely on the defensive ideologically, and finally triggers a cosmic war for the very future of existence.
And the result isn't a reset button. There's no return to the status quo. Instead, the story ends with this chilling, simple declaration that a new, terrifying, and profoundly uncertain age has just dawned. The fifth world has begun.
And that leaves us with a really provocative final question, one that cuts right to the heart of the entire superhero myth. What is the role of a hero in a world that's been tempted to see salvation in its own destruction? When mercy is framed as a crime, what does it truly mean to be a savior?